Hi, I'm Derek Cheney, and today we're going to be talking about respiratory protection and the safe work practices to protect you and your team members. In this video, we're going to cover 4 topics. These topics are respirator selection, the medical evaluation, the respirator fit test, and using the respirator. Let's get started. It's extremely important to select the right respirator for the task. Selecting the appropriate respirator is based on the respiratory hazards to which you'll be exposed during the work being performed. You want to make sure it can be used in compliance with the conditions of its certification as well. It's important to evaluate the exposures and identify the contaminant's chemical state and physical form to make sure the correct respirator is selected. When evaluating the respiratory hazards, make sure to get the right people involved. If the exposure cannot be identified, the atmosphere should be considered immediately dangerous to life and health. The IDLH is an atmosphere that poses an immediate threat to life, would cause irreversible adverse health effects, or impair your ability to escape from a dangerous atmosphere. The oxygen levels in the atmosphere are another factor to consider. The atmosphere can either be normal, enriched, or deficient. According to OSHA, there is a small window that makes up a normal level of oxygen, between 20.8 and 21%. An enriched atmosphere, meaning there's too much oxygen, is anything over 22%. A deficient atmosphere, meaning not enough oxygen, is anything under 19.5%. It is important to remember that anything between 19.5 and 22% oxygen is considered a workable atmosphere. As for the enriched and deficient levels, they are to be considered IDLH atmospheres. With all of that said, the question remains, what type of respirator should I use in different situations? There are many different makes, models, and types of respirators on the market. We'll be focusing on the more common types that you could use during a job task. The most common type you will use is the filtering face piece, more commonly known as the dust mask. These are negative pressure respirators with a filter as the main part of the face piece. They're designed to be a single-use respirator and should be thrown away after use. The half and full face respirators are considered tight-fitting and allow for different types of filters to be used for different hazardous environments. The filters and canisters are an important part of these respirators. The filters are a component used to remove solid or liquid aerosols from the atmosphere. Make sure to follow the manufacturer's service time limit recommendations. Most filters have a service life indicator built into them. That is a system that warns you that the filter is nearing the end of adequate protection. The canisters and cartridges are containers with filters built into them that will remove a specific contaminant from the air passing through the container. Self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBAs, are atmosphere-supplying respirators that supply a breathing air source that you can carry with you. These respirators come in 2 types, negative and positive pressure. A negative pressure respirator is one in which the air pressure inside the face piece is negative during inhalation with respect to the ambient air pressure outside the respirator. Examples of this would be your dust masks and half or full face respirators. The positive pressure type is one in which the air pressure inside the face piece exceeds the ambient air pressure outside the respirator. The SCBA is a good example of this type. Before you begin using a respirator and even have a fit test, it's very important to make sure you get a medical evaluation done. This evaluation is performed to determine if you have the ability to use a respirator. Braun Electric will provide the evaluation. It includes a short questionnaire and a medical examination by our company physicians. This is a yearly process if your work requires you to continue to use a respirator. Some of the criteria that may lead to additional exams could be if you report medical signs or symptoms related to the ability to use a respirator, maybe observations made during a fit test indicated a need, or changes occur in the workplace conditions that may increase the physical burden on you. Let's talk about the fit test. Before you use any type of respirator with a negative or positive pressure face piece, you must be fitted using the same make, model, style, and size of respirator. This test must be performed prior to the initial use and whenever a different respirator is used, and at least annually. The test is performed primarily to ensure a proper seal can be made. Any tight-fitting respirator cannot be worn if you have facial hair or any condition that interferes with the face-to-face piece seal or valve function. Corrective glasses or any other PPE must be worn in a manner that does not interfere with that seal. The seal is so important that even after the fit test, whenever you use the respirator, you must perform a seal check. To perform a seal check, follow the instructions from the manufacturer's recommendations and any instruction you may have received from the person conducting the fit test. There is a lot more that goes into using a respirator than just putting it on and going to work. There must be a continuous evaluation of the work area conditions and degree of exposure to assist in assuring the effectiveness of the respirator. If an issue does arise, you must leave the area if you detect vapor or gas breakthrough, changes in breathing resistance, or leakage of the facepiece. Needing to clean the facepiece or replace the filters, cartridges, or canisters is another reason to leave the area. Make sure to leave the respirator on until you have evacuated the area and it's safe to remove the facepiece. If an IDLH atmosphere is present, there are a few requirements you must follow. First, your site safety specialist must be on site. Also, someone must be located outside of the IDLH atmosphere to watch the air supply if that is being used, and stand by as a rescue. This is something that Braun will provide through a third-party company when this type of work is needed. A visual, voice, or signal line of communication must be maintained between the person inside and the person outside of the IDLH atmosphere at all times. The person outside of the hazardous atmosphere must be trained and equipped to provide effective emergency rescue. Again, this person will most likely be provided by a third-party company. It is important to note that just because the supplied air and equipment needed for work in IDLH atmospheres is supplied by a third-party company doesn't mean that you shouldn't inspect it for yourself. Compressed breathing air must meet at least the requirements for Type 1 Grade D breathing air. It should also be equipped with suitable inline air-purifying sorbent beds and filters. These requirements should be inspected by you before using any of this equipment. Being able to identify the correct filter, cartridge, or canister for your facepiece is a key part of using a respirator. If you select the wrong one, the respirator isn't doing you any good. All filters, cartridges, and canisters are labeled and color-coded with a NIOSH-approved label. This is a great thing because all the labels are standardized and it makes it easier to know what type to use. The label should never be removed and must remain legible. That means if you come across a label that you can't read or one that is missing the label, do not use it for any reason. Each label will have the manufacturer's name and part number and an abbreviation to indicate the type. You may see something that says N95 or P100. There is usually a matrix label supplied with the filters and cartridges that explains what each type means and how they should be used. For example, if you're working in an area that may contain dust that has hantavirus concern, the Center for Disease Control recommends the use of a half-face, tight-fitting respirator with an N100 filter. As you can see, there's a lot that goes into respiratory protection. It's not as easy as grabbing a dust mask and going to work. There are so many things to consider when selecting a respirator, evaluating the atmosphere, as well as going through the medical evaluation and fit testing process. If you have any other questions regarding respiratory protection, get with your site safety specialist. They will be happy to help.